So, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the next slot, and it's about how CFO's job have changed with ESG. And on the agenda, you see Walter Oblin, CFO of the Austrian Post. Unfortunately, for personal reason, we had to make a quick change there, and we are really glad that Harald Hagenauer, the investor relation head of Deutsche Post, can really of the Austrian Post, sorry, yeah, that was my mistake, of the Austrian Post was really willing and being very flexible in order to come here. And for Harald, as an introduction, Harald is not just the head of investor relation of the Austrian Post, and this includes not just the normal investor relation job, but also corporate governance, corporate sustainability, compliance, auditing, and last but not least, risk management. And Harald also oversaw the IPO of the Austrian Post, and besides his capacity as head of investor relation there, he's also the CEO of CIRA, which is the Circle Investor Relation of Austria. So I think, Harald, without any further ado, we are glad to have you here. Please come on the stage.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for the introduction, first of all, and thanks for being here on this conference and talking about this very important topic of ESG. And yeah, let me directly start on the question: how did the life of CFOs have been changed the last couple of years? And first of all, best regards from Walter Oblin. He got sick yesterday, and so I had to step in and could step in. But yes, it's right. It has dramatically changed. That's what I wanted to say. And just look on all these topics which are on the agenda right now. These topics haven't been there three to 5 years ago. So we are really, and we have just opened the door into a new world, I have to say. And the whole financial team, the whole financial accounting team, and the CFO, the world of the CFO has changed dramatically. To understand what we as a company and how we as a company can participate in this way, in this path to CO2 neutral or CO2 free societies, I maybe give a short introduction in that what Austrian Post is and does. Of course, I think you all know postal companies is quite a simple business. We are dealing with, and that's the same all over the world, we are dealing with mail. Yeah? Mail, on the one hand side, is a shrinking business. There are no love letters anymore. On the other hand, parcels. Parcels is a growing business. We all know all our Amazon and other sendings have to be delivered every day, every door, and that's why we have a growth in the shrinking part of our business. And number three, that's the case for Austrian Post. We still have a number three division, which has some kind of retail activities and banking activities. And when we talk about sustainability, of course, for the whole management team, it's so important, first of all, before we talk about reportings and this run for ratings, we have to talk about the definition of goals, first of all. Number two, to set actions, so a measurement plan, what the company can do, what is really possible, what is not possible, and how this way in the next 10 to 20 years has to be done. And then number three, to measure it and to report it. So for us as a company, of course, we have set out a strategy already a couple of years ago where we've said in the middle of it, whatever we do, in which kind of markets we want to be in, it's all about going this way in a sustainable way. So let's start with the targets first. We said we're not just talking about the E and the S and so on. We have to take a look at the whole company, the whole concept of the group. So first of all, of course, as an economic target, we want to grow. We are a 2.5 billion company right now. We want to grow to a 3 billion company in a couple of years. But we have set clear targets for all our environmental and all our social standards. And I think the main topic, of course, here is these carbon neutral activities. And that's why we have made a clear investigation what we can do, what are our measurements here on our way to Paris. And we've set out a master plan, a so-called sustainability master plan of Austrian Post 2030. In total, we have focused about 14 topics what we can do, what we have to do the next couple of years. And these topics are a standard program, a process program within Austrian Post. So you see here a couple of topics focused on the whole group, on the development of the whole governance of the group. It's all about our products, how we define products, what can we do on the customer side, what can we do on the procurement side, and on the governance and compliance itself. So that is the G in some of the ESG activities, but even more because we really have to work on the product activities and that how we have been seen on the client side and on the business customer side. Number two, I think that's for the most of us very clear. It's all about green and efficient mobility. It's all about buildings. When you think on Austrian Post or on typical postal companies, it's clear we have to deliver millions of mail, millions of parcels day by day. Yeah, there are for Austrian Post during the Christmas season. There's on some days we have to deliver 1.5 billion of parcels in Austria a day. And that's, of course, a dramatic amount of machinery, logistics, and people have to work for you to deliver all the parcels you order today to be delivered tomorrow. And I think that's our challenge, and that's why it's clear it's all about how to treat the equipment and how to treat the stuff. So that's our program. So we have to define action steps in all of these 14 activities. And we've just heard about this way to Paris. Also, we as Austrian Post have agreed on the science-based targets. So yes, we want to keep the global warming down to just plus 1.5%. And in order to do so in our industry, it's necessary to have their own equipment, their own direct emissions under control or reduce them by 38%. But we feel also responsible for our suppliers, sub-suppliers, all the trucks and drivers available for Austrian Post on the street, not just in Austria, but within the group. And that's our ambition for the next 10 years. That's a tough ambition, I would say, because we are not just available in Austria, but also in a lot of countries in Eastern Europe and in Turkey, where it is not that easy to get a lot of a green vehicle fleet, which is subsidized by a big amount. That's not there in those countries. And that's the challenge in reality in our case. For our Austrian operation, we started the program in 2010. So 2010 was the first year when we said, let's define what we can do as a postal company. At that time, we got a mailing from Hennes & Morris from Sweden. They said, what's the footprint on our parcels in Austria? At that time in 2010, we didn't even know what a footprint is. Yeah? So we had to calculate the footprint. We had to divide it by all the trucks and drivers we had. We had to define a footprint per parcel. And so we designed a program which was called then CO2 neutral, because we said we want to reduce what we can and compensate the rest of it. And for a postal company, for all postal companies, there are typically 3 types of emissions responsible for a footprint. Number one, buildings. Building was a third of Austrian Post, and there we could do a lot already the last 10 years. So the electricity, new photovoltaic plants and so on. So that's where we had a lot of success the first 10 years, I would say. Number two, it's the cars. In Austria, we have about 9,000 cars to deliver all the parcels and mail. And we think, and that's our plan, that we are ready by 2030 to bring the footprint of all the cars, all the vehicles to zero. And then number three, it's all about the trucks. And that's the most important in size, but also the challenging part of the story, because at the moment, as you know, there are no trucks available which are really CO2 neutral. So but that will hopefully happen soon, and that will then the program then be starting 2025 or maybe 2030, when the trucks are available, either driven by fuel cell or whatever, or battery-driven cars. We just see prototypes on the street right now, but we think in a couple of years' time they could be really ready for a bigger fleet. So this is a chart on all the cars we use. This system works. I think 10 years ago we all had the story that there are so many cars available and they can drive 100 miles a day. That was not true. That was never true. Now it is true. It works, and we can say, we can definitely say we think there's no risk that we cannot fulfill our strategy here to be 100% CO2 neutral on the last mile. So these kind of vans and trucks which are necessary for the postal industry, they are available. Of course, our challenge is that we always need bigger trucks. In the chart we show you right away, to reduce the footprint is not that easy, because at the same time of the last 10 years we had an increase of the parcel transport volume by 70%. So the more parcel you order, the bigger the trucks, the bigger the transport kilograms we have to deliver day by day. And that's why that is the challenge that we also cope with the capacity there. So trucks, I think, is possible. We also work very much on photovoltaic plants. When we change our whole vehicle fleet to electrical fleet, we will need double the electricity of right now. And our idea is to get 30% of all the electricity by our own production. So in all our sorting centers, we are now installing big photovoltaic plants, and that's just the idea then for the next year, or for this year, by the way. And for the next 10 years, we think we can triple this amount of installed capacity on our plants. So that's the action we have to do, and the goals we have set. And now we come to the reporting activities. And here you, of course, know that there are hundreds of reporting standards available. The last 10 years, we all did report, all the companies did report on the base of the Global Reporting Initiative. But it's more and more complex to find those kind of reporting standards which will be which scope the necessity of the future. We think that it's plenty of work to do here. We as a companies, we think it would be very, very necessary to have a standard which is understood and accepted worldwide, not just on some kind of local base, because it's more and more complex and it needs more and more bureaucracy to really cope with TCFD, with GRR, with CDP. This fragmentation of standards is a big challenge for companies. And even more the whole taxonomy story. Come to that later. Ranking and rating on the capital market is the name of the game. That's clear. We as listed company and all of the listed companies have to provide information, have to fill all this information in a couple of databases. That's a mega business in the meantime. From a side story, being in a kind of rating activity, it's a mainstream story. And I think the whole capital market has learned how to deal with that, and it's very, very necessary. So also we as Austrian Post and a lot of other companies are aware that reporting as a basis for good rating and ranking is so important. And when we come to the buzzword taxonomy, I have to say also here a new world is on the table. I think I have to say to all the analysts and investors, there is a kind of religion on the table which is not ready yet. I think we have to be very clear there. We know all the ideas, we support all these ideas, but the regulations sometimes is creating very, very confusing reporting activities. In the first year, of course, all the company had to report the taxonomy eligibility. They did work quite well, I would say, even besides the fact that most of the standards haven't been really clear. Now this year we have to report the compliance to the standards, and we still are in big talks with our peers in the industry, because the simple question is an electric car taxonomy compliant, yes or no, says a clear, it depends. In our case, an electronic car in Spain is compliant because they are using summer tires. We in Austria or Germany are using, in winters, winter tires or some intermediates. And these intermediates, they are about 2 to 3% less efficient, and that's why they are not compliant to the taxonomy. And that creates a crazy story, of course. If we change our vehicle fleet to about 10,000 electronic-driven cars, is this an activity which is supported by the taxonomy, yes or no? Still, on the paper, would create a no at the moment. So, as you see here, we are in talks with some institutions there, and we think the religion is not really written in stone at the moment. And that's why a lot of troubles and a lot of discussions in the whole CFU community is going on the details of this wonderful idea. And one part is also very important, definitely for the whole financial community in the companies. That's reporting itself. You just can report what you measure. You have to remeasure group-wide information, and our controllers of the companies, they have to learn, and also the auditors have to learn that it is much more complex to report on kilowatt hours or liters instead of euros. Euros are created as euros and cents. Everyone can measure that. A kilowatt hour on electricity, on heat, is not that easy to calculate on buildings and to plan on buildings and to measure on buildings. So a 2% up or down is also okay. That's what we had to learn, what our auditors had to learn. So by the end of the day, I think we as the companies and also the CFOs had to change the focus on the internal auditing team, the internal finance team, to come up with good measurement activities, come up with good reporting, come up with good ratings and ranking stories. And by the end of the day, we as a company, of course, still want to support the capital market with a story which is consistent and says, yes, there is a growth. We want to be a growth company. We want to be a reliable company and deliver what we always delivered by the end of the day. That's dividend. But we also want to go in the direction of a decarbonization of our logistics. We think we can do that. The good thing in our case is that we don't have to change big processes like the steel, the gas, the paper industry. We just have to handle buildings and cars and trucks. And we think that's possible. So I think whatever happens the next 10 to 20 years, I think we will be ready. If the trucks are available in 10 years to 15 years, then we can say this is a clear chance and a clear target to be really CO2 neutral in 20 years' time. We think we can get it. So by the end of the day, we think ESG on the agenda of a CFO of a company is so important. We see a very good response coming from the capital market, very good response coming from the labor market, but also from our customers. They love that we started this program of CO2 neutral already 10 years ago. They see that there's progress going on. They see our green cars on the street, not the taxonomy, but the Klein see that. And that's why we think it makes a lot of sense to go on this way and to focus on ESG and the further activities there. Of course, it would be very, very helpful to find standards where we, as we always say, 80% now is better than 100% never. I think you know this saying, and we very often see an idea of regulators that they want to regulate everything into the last mile, but I think that's not important. Let's create a non-financial reporting system where 80% is regulated and the rest can be done by the market. At the moment, we spend sometimes more money to on the regulation side, on the auditor side, on the bureaucracy, and it would be easier for us to buy 5 more cars than pay 5 more consultants. So it has a high complexity, but I think it's worth it, and we want to go this way, and we think and hope that you as an institution can help to come down with the whole regulation idea and to bring it in a way where we all can focus on the same way by helping the environment, by helping to stop the global warming. Thanks a lot.
Harald, thank you very much. Are there any questions here from the audience to Harald? Jean-Philippe.
Yeah. As you are part of the investor relations team, do you notice more questions from your investors, whatever bond holders or shareholders, in the last years? And if yes, what are the key questions that you notice? And do you have in your general presentation, I mean, ESG dedicated slides, or do you do specific ESG roadshow? How do you organize all that?
Very good question, because a lot of people always say we report tons of material, thousands of key figures, but no one is asking that. Yeah? And that's partly true, yes, because when we go on a roadshow, we most of the time meet active investors, and they get from the back office the alignment to talk to us. So in reality, there's a filter behind it. Yeah? So we cannot see, and sometimes we cannot see the filter. A lot of the money in the meantime is passive invested. So it's so necessary as a precondition to get to all these talks, to get to the meetings, to be ranked in a kind of A or B category, where each fund, each big institution has this kind of filter before we come into the chance for a meeting. So yes, it's necessary as a precondition, first of all. And number two, in the meantime, we distinguish classical roadshows where you meet those kind of investors focusing on the story, on the earnings season and the quarterly figures. And we're doing some roadshows just for these back office guys, I have to say, where we want to clarify and answer their questions on the ESG matter. That's a different type of roadshow, where not the quarterly activities is so important, but the system of the company, the targets, the long-term targets, and the measurements you've been in place. Yeah?
There's another question.
Thank you. As the question was how for CFO the ESG changed the whole system, my question would relate to the kind of ESG KPIs within the variable remuneration policy of board management. And I would be interested if you already have implemented some ESG KPIs, quantitative and qualitative, for your board members, and especially for the CFO.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. That's when we are on a roadshow, on an ESG roadshow, and we talk to all these ESG guys, that's definitely one of the top 3 questions we get there. So how are all the ESG activities linked to your bonus? Yeah? And in our case, yes, of course, that's in the meantime, I think, I wouldn't say standard, but it should be standard, and it's expected to be there. And in our case, yes. Of course, the bonus of the board, in our case, and also on the second level management, is linked to ESG. In our case, it's about 20–30% of the bonus can switch with the ESG targets. Yeah? So our board has a clear number of cars, number of social standards, and so on. I think 50% of their so-called, we have a kind of modifier, yeah? And 50% of those soft fact activities are just linked to ESG, and I think in total it makes 20–30% of the bonus up or down, and the compensation up or down with ESG activities.
Any additional questions from the audience here in the room, or perhaps from the online audience? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your willingness to jump in, and
course.
please give our regards to Walter.
I'll do so. All the best.
Thank you very much.